राग सिंह ठाकुर।
मैं अनुराग सिंह ठाकुर ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूँगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूँगा। मैं संघ के मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूँगा तथा मैं भय, पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूँगा। मैं अनुराग सिंह ठाकुर ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूँ कि जो विषय संघ के मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूँगा।
Well, we still have several more names to go, but briefly going across to our panelists, our experts here on this, on the names that we've seen so far here. We're connected with Professor Maninder Thakur, who's in the Center for Political Studies in JNU, also the founder of the Bihar Research Group, Managing Editor Vinay Tiwari here with us as well. Vinay, first to you, would you like to add on the diverse list, so to say, that we've seen? And one that is expected to continue for several few minutes here. It's about taking people from different walks of life. There's a vision document, so to say, as far as for the new Council of Ministers, in taking people from different professions, from different categories, from different walks of life here. What does that indicate here to you?
Well, I mean, that vision document which categorizes the shape and form of the new ministry, that's the spin, that's the icing on the, on what is a tough challenge ahead of the BJP. But let's get down to brass tacks. The honest truth is that a lot of the appointments that you see right now, at least the ones who have taken, the oath so far, are very clear, cleverly appointed political. They have a political logic to it. Take the first person who took oath today, Mr. Narayan Rane, for instance. Mr. Narayan Rane's politics has been as interesting and as intriguing as any other politician. I mean, he's a politician who once carried out the Thokshahi Rajniti of Shiv Sena and has now gone over and walked over to the Lokshahi Rajniti of the BJP. And when I use the word Thokshahi, I actually mean that he was quite literally the muscle man for the Shiv Sena and grew within the ranks. Was very close to Balasaheb Thackeray, then became their near enemies to the extent that, today his family uttered certain very, very unusual words about Mr. Aditya Thackeray. So he has a running battle now going with the young Thackerays and now has been drafted in the cabinet principally for a very clear political purpose. There is a BMC election that is coming up and he comes from the Malwan region, from the Konkan region, which is one area where the BJP is very, very keen to do better than what they've been managing so far. They know that there are certain parts of Maharashtra. In fact, if you see the entire Maharashtra contingent, which is going to be inducted in today, has a very clear political reason. Much the same you see, say, for instance, a state like Uttar Pradesh, where the inductees have a very clear political purpose. I mean, the fact that Anupriya Patel will be brought back into the cabinet is a very clear result of the state going to the election next year. So while there are some, of course, spins that will be given about the educational backgrounds and the fact that there are so many professionals, the fact is a lot of them have been chosen for a very specific political purpose which the BJP hopes to use in the elections that are coming up, Sahir.
Right. Professor Thakur, would you like to add to that, apart from the election calculations that Vinay says have been made most certainly in this rejig and expansion, those who are coming in from other walks of life, such as Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who of course is a Rajya Sabha MP, but he's been a former IS officer, he's played an important role in the corporate world as well, and there are many more on the list, a couple of medical doctors that we're going to be having here as well as part of this cabinet expansion.
Yes, I think there are many IS officers and professionals in the cabinet now, and they were earlier also. And probably the earlier professionals would be replaced by the new ones. Like maybe a doctor will become again the health minister, maybe a lawyer would become again law minister. Hopefully, that is what is the reason he might have brought those people in. But as Vinayji said, that uh, it looks like a kind of political management more than a governance issue. Uh, kind of representation that was needed. Some people who were waiting on the dock for being inducted, they have been inducted. Maybe this also gives an indication to the other people who are waiting in different parties to move on from the part, move out from the parties and join BJP. That well, BJP takes care of those fairly well. Maybe that is another indication that BJP is giving. I do not know exactly if those professionals are brought to really on the ground of their capacity to perform. I mean, none of the IS officer, I think, who has been inducted seem to be very famous for their governance when they were IS officers. At least I don't know any one of them. Uh, uh, I was a little surprised about two people being appointed from Bihar. I was expecting BJP to bring in
Okay.
Sushil Modi in the cabinet, but I don't know why he has not been given this favor, because when he was requested not to join Bihar cabinet, the strong feeling was that probably he will be inducted at the center. So it seems that,
Okay.
yeah, there is a kind of mixture of things. Yeah.
Yes, Vinay, you wanted to further add to that here. Please go ahead.
No, very clearly. I mean, look, Mr. Sushil Modi has not found a place in the cabinet simply because the central BJP's leadership believes that he's too close and his proximity to Mr. Nitish Kumar. I mean, that's been his undoing in that party. Mr. Sushil Kumar by himself has a decent pedigree. I mean, he's got a good background. He used to be the head of the GST Council for a while, kind of was involved in laying down the framework for that whole thing. But the fact is that he's always enjoyed a close proximity to Mr. Nitish Kumar. And remember, in the BJP's politics, no matter how they spin it, their tent is always hegemonistic. They do not, while you will see some coalition partners being inducted in the government, the BJP believes in the idea of a single party governance system. They are being forced to do it simply because you have an elections year, an important one coming ahead. But the fact of the matter is, given a chance, they would want their party to strengthen at the cost of an alliance partner weakening. They've done that in the past, and they would not hesitate to do that again. And I guess that's pretty much the script that you will see emerging in the state of Bihar. They've already neutralized the LJP by completely marginalizing Mr. Chirag Paswan, who once called himself the Hanuman of Mr. Narendra Modi. Today he finds himself not even the member of his own party, where his complete bet noir, his uncle is now in part of the cabinet. So this is the kind of politics that the BJP will play. And remember, while you asked a very relevant question, Seher, that the only argument that I was making was that to balance out the 13 lawyers and the 6 doctors, and that's the exact figure of the current cabinet, you have 27 OBC ministers also taking oaths today. So yes, there are more professionals, and yes, there are people with good, educated backgrounds, but you also have those considerations that have been taken up very seriously, which is possibly a little more important for the BJP than just having people from the background of law or medicine.
Right. Let's also go across to senior journalist Mr. Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, also connected with us here. Good evening. Thank you for being with us here. How much of a balance has been struck today? This is in terms of political calculations, in terms of upcoming state assembly elections. We have the longest list from within this list that is coming in from Uttar Pradesh. This is in terms of reaching out to all strata and aspects of society in that vision document, so to say, that we've been talking about. It's about Daliton ki sarkar, it's about Adivasiyon ki sarkar, it's about Mahilaon ki sarkar. In your understanding, how much of a balance in its entirety this list has struck today?
Before looking at the spin which the government would be trying to give to a proper balance in the entire exercise, I think, there are certain political facts which must be stated. One is that Modi 2.0 is going to be evaluated by future historians for its handling of the pandemic. right from January 2020 till the end of the pandemic, whenever it comes. This is the first real exercise to recover from the political over the last 1.5 years. So, and what we find is that the government is admitting that it went wrong on the following issues, health, labor, media management, education, and law. Because the ministers who are handling all these issues have resigned from the cabinet. You are going to
Right.
have new ministers. So I think, that this is a bit paradoxical because this government and Mr. Modi's style both are known to be slightly more centralized than the previous regimes. So the negative impact, or rather, the blame is being apportioned to the ministers, whereas we have always talked about that it is essentially the ministers are primarily implementers, whereas the key decisions are taken by a much select group of advisors around the prime minister. So that is something which we must take note of. The second is that if we look at the state-wise profile of the new people who are being inducted, now we have a very important election both for the country and for the BJP taking place in the first quarter of 2022. And we find that 7 ministers are being inducted from Uttar Pradesh, of whom one is an ally who had been a minister, Anupriya Patel. She had been a minister between 2014 in the first term, and then in the second term you did not want her. You denied them what you wanted, and you got them. Now, 1 year before the election, the party realizes that its social balance, what they call is that the social engineering in Uttar Pradesh has not been correct. So that is why they are trying to rectify it 1 year before the elections. So I think that this the cabinet reshuffle is essentially admission of various political mistakes which has happened since 2019, and also try to apportion blame to specific ministers and then try out new ones.
Okay. Vinay, would you like to add to this? And this is largely going by the calculation, not on those who are being inducted today here, but those who have been asked to step down. This is specifically pertaining to health, education, IT, and INB. If the damages that are being assessed in this manner of 1.5 years of the pandemic here, can all of that be undone with these resignations that we've seen today?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, what Nilanjan just said is pretty much what we've been saying most of the evening, that this particular exercise is meant precisely to undo what Mr. Modi realizes has been a damage to his image of being an efficient performer. At least that's the image they like to project. The pandemic has come back and actually shown up a completely different reality altogether in many ministries, not just, say, for instance, the health ministry. As I said, Dr. Harshvardhan today getting the axe may not necessarily be the result of him being a non-performing minister. Because remember, from in wave 1, the Prime Minister's office was personally and directly supervising everything to do with the pandemic wave. And in the second wave, the Prime Minister's office took the call of treating pandemic as a federal issue and said the states are empowered to take their own decisions and they should go forward. And they actually delayed their interventions quite a lot, which led to a lot of criticism, especially over the issue of oxygen supply, remdesivir, and other important essentials or so. So my personal feeling is that the major changes that have been signaled, the ministries that Nilanjan was talking about, where people have gotten the axe, it's another attempt to refurbish at the midpoint and give it a new makeover. They do not want the hangover of what has happened in the first half of this year and the last year to last for any for the second half of their term, because that's going to be critical. Because as he rightly said, there will be the judgment of how this government has performed will have the pandemic hangover on it. And you need to rid people of that baggage. And one way of doing that in perception management and image management is to simply replace the face which heads that particular government. What I'm intrigued by, Sahir, is that there are some ministries, for instance, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad's ministry, where one would have assumed that the very strident position that was taken by the ministry against the social media majors, as well as in terms of the government's legal defenses in courts, would be coming from the highest quarters. I'm not ready to accept that this was all Mr. Ravi Shankar's ministry's own doing. It had to be happening with some bit of larger consensus about how to deal with this new scenario that was emerging. But yes, they obviously want to send a message on that point. I'm also very intrigued. In fact, that's one point where I would even want Nilanjan to tell us what he thinks of it. But I was very interested in just watching Shobha Karandalaje taking oath, because that tells me that it may not all be good news for Mr. Yediyurappa going forward, because it may well be that she's being inducted into the cabinet because she's close to Mr. Yediyurappa, and at some stage the central leadership may take a decision on a change of replacement leadership there as well, because that's one thing that the BJP in the Karnataka unit have been asking for a while, at least a section of it, Shayad.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to read between the names here, what we see today. We're almost halfway through. We still have several more names to go here. Requesting our panelists to stay on with us. We're going back across to the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
श्रीमती मीनाक्षी लेखी।
मैं मीनाक्षी लेखी ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगी। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता को अक्षुण्ण रखूंगी। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगी तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगी। मैं मीनाक्षी लेखी ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगी।
श्रीमती अन्नपूर्णा देवी।
मैं अन्नपूर्णा देवी सत्यनिष्ठा से प्रतिज्ञा करती हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगी। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगी। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगी तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगी। मैं अन्नपूर्णा देवी सत्यनिष्ठा से प्रतिज्ञा करती हूँ कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगी।
श्री ए नारायण स्वामी।
I, Anekal Abbayya Narayan Swamy, do solemnly affirm that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established, that I will uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, that I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge my duties as a Minister of State for the Union, and that I will do right to the all manners of people in accordance with the Constitution and the law, without fear or favor, affection or ill will. I, Anekal Abbayya Narayan Swamy, do solemnly affirm that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person or persons any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall become known to me as a Minister of State for the Union, except as by the required for the due discharge of my duties as such Minister of State.
श्री कौशल किशोर।
मैं कौशल किशोर ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं कौशल किशोर ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
बहुत बधाई।
श्री अजय भट्ट।
मैं अजय भट्ट ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं अजय भट्ट ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा, उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
श्री B.L. वर्मा।
मैं B.L. वर्मा ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता को अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं B.L. वर्मा ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
श्री अजय कुमार।
मैं अजय कुमार ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं अजय कुमार ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवा जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
श्री चौहान देवू सिंह।
मैं देवू सिंह चौहान ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं देव सिंह चौहान ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
बहुत बधाई। श्री भगवंत खुबा।
मैं भगवंत गुरुबसप्पा खुबा ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं भगवंत गुरुबसप्पा खुबा ईश्वर के शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसी राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
श्री कपिल मोरेश्वर पाटिल।
मैं कपिल मोरेश्वर पाटिल ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात अनुराग या द्वेष के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं कपिल मोरेश्वर पाटिल ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्य के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संशोधित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
बहुत बधाई। सुश्री प्रतिमा भौमिक।
मैं प्रतिमा भौमिक ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्चा श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगी। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगी। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्य का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगी तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या देश के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगी। मैं प्रतिमा भौमिक ईश्वर की शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्य का सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगी।
डॉक्टर सुभाष सरकार।
मैं डॉक्टर सुभाष सरकार ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा। मैं भारत की प्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रखूंगा। मैं संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों का श्रद्धापूर्वक और शुद्ध अंतःकरण से निर्वहन करूंगा तथा मैं भय या पक्षपात, अनुराग या देश के बिना सभी प्रकार के लोगों के प्रति संविधान और विधि के अनुसार न्याय करूंगा। मैं डॉक्टर सुभाष सरकार ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि जो विषय संघ के राज्य मंत्री के रूप में मेरे विचार के लिए लाया जाएगा अथवा मुझे ज्ञात होगा उसे किसी व्यक्ति या व्यक्तियों को तब के सिवाय जबकि ऐसे राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपने कर्तव्यों के सम्यक निर्वहन के लिए ऐसा करना अपेक्षित हो, मैं प्रत्यक्ष अथवा अप्रत्यक्ष रूप में संसूचित या प्रकट नहीं करूंगा।
You're watching live images that are coming in from the Rashtrapati Bhavan on this huge cabinet expansion and reshuffle that is taking place. Oath-taking ceremony of all those who've newly been inducted now into the cabinet is what you're watching. But also on the messaging that is being sent out by the government of India. Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, senior journalist who's been connected with us here. Nilanjan, in your reading of what we see right now, how strong is that message going across to the people, the government to an extent accepting that there could have been mismanagement at one front as far as the COVID-19, the pandemic crisis is concerned, but this is new faces, new leadership within the government here, and as I was speaking to one BJP spokesperson today saying that this is a brand new vision, a rainbow color cabinet of what we have, and this is going to be a heavy duty engine sarkar.
You know, I have also been speaking to some people, who have, communicated as to what the government has tried to do through this exercise. I found that it was very similar to what was explained to the media in 2019 and even way back in 2014 when Mr. Modi first formed the government. I really don't see any real new innovation which is coming in. Yes, we know that there has been a new Ministry of Cooperation which has been, cooperatives which has been created. I guess it's basically going to look at the cooperative sector. Now, how that cooperative sector is going to boost the economy and also going to balance out and restore the personal economies of millions of Indians, which has been completely shattered, for which very little effort has actually been done, barring giving the dole of extending loans and giving free ration. There are multiple quick crisis point which this government is facing, and after about a year and a half, I think merely by a new team it is not going to help. What is required is that you need a complete change in perspective. This government cannot be run by a highly centralized team. India requires greater amount of federal handling now because the problems are much more localized. It is not just a question of 28 or 29 states and several union territories. It is also, every state has different district-specific issues which have to be addressed. So this is not the time to centralize governance, but the time to actually decentralize completely. And I really do not know, with the vision which is unfolding before us, whether this is actually going to happen or not. If it happens, it's going to benefit the BJP because it would be able to roll back the political losses, which has not happened. Otherwise, the BJP will have to go back to its old, the script of polarizing society, which I think is going to be very terrible for the country. And I really do not know whether we can afford another situation like that.
Senior journalist Sanjay Kapoor connected with us here this evening as well. Good evening. Thank you for being with us here. What is your understanding? Is it a question of pinning too many expectations to what is being called this grand expansion and a rejig and a reformulation here? Or is it going to snap back to electoral calculations that have also been made in this rejig?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, please.
I'm Sanjay Singh, not Sanjay Kapoor. Beg your pardon. Please correct that.
My apologies. Profusely apologize for that. Yes, Mr. Sanjay Singh, please.
This cabinet expansion, I have not seen this kind of a cabinet expansion come reshuffle exercise. Reshuffle part, of course, will come later as and when portfolios are announced later in the night. But so many heavyweight ministers going and so many ministers being inducted, obviously the criteria was performance. B, selection. Of course, BJP is a political party, and any ruling party in any democratic setup has to take care of its political interest, and therefore the social constituents at large, which means caste, combination, regional aspirations, also gender distribution, and so on and so forth. So that way, this exercise is very unique, which has not happened in past so many decades. So that way, this is a new kind of experience, and we should give some time before jumping to any kind of conclusions that some people already are doing. The second thing, the kind of representation that has been given, by the very fact that you have listed out names as to senior ministers who have gone, a dozen of them, some very surprising. Ravi Shankar Prasad and Prakash Javadekar, of course, are surprising names. The promotions that have happened, that is again noteworthy. Anurag Thakur, Kishan Reddy, R.K. Singh, Hardeep Singh Puri, these are, and Kiran Rijiju. These promotions, of course, indicate that performance has been some parameter in Modi's regime. Plus, the people selected, apart from region and caste and other combinations and political permutations and combinations apart, people who have been selected have certain background. In the sense, if you go to, apart from their caste affiliations, you can also see that their educational qualification or their background, so to say, in terms of whatever social expertise or technical expertise they have, that expertise is also good. In terms of messaging, inducting
Right.
11 women ministers, highest again was in Modi government. That was in 2014. That was the highest. And yesterday's, add that to the changes that happened yesterday in terms of governors movement, new governors inducted. And there again, women representation, of course, was very high as was seen. So all in all, stress on two things that here on, see, assembly elections are going to take place in 5 states. Thereafter, next year, by end of next year, you have big bang Gujarat election.
Right.
Of course, is later in 6 months' time. So therefore, that also had to be taken care of. But I think with average age of Union Council of Ministers going down from 61 to 58, and so many people coming in, of course, there will be some kind of recharge of energy, a new orientation. I hope that new Council of Ministers work with new energy, new vigor, and new orientation. Also, when performance becomes the criteria, and some very known ministers going, the ministers who are there will also tighten their belt.
Professor Thakur, because this is, of course, a considerable list of 40 plus, 43 names there that we're looking at. In your view, what are the interesting names? What has been along unexpected lines? Because some, of course, very predictably, the names that we are seeing, the largest number, 7 of which that are coming in from Uttar Pradesh, 4 coming in from Karnataka, keeping in mind the leadership crisis there that Vinay mentioned, currently in Karnataka there as well. But what have been the surprise names for you, which you think can raise expectations for a better performing government?
I don't really know. I don't, many of them as great performers, or they have never performed. I mean, there's at least not a recorded history of their performances available to us. So I really won't be able to say that. But I think I'll come back to the question that you have, Sahar, you said earlier that probably a new narrative will be created by this. As you said, from Soot Boot ki Sarkar to महिलाओं की सरकार, दलितों की सरकार, ओबीसी की सरकार, पढ़े लिखों की सरकार. I think that will be more important narrative than the performance that we are looking for. By no means, I don't see any face in this who could be considered as better performer than Javadekar or many of them. So it doesn't seem that performance has really been the reason for change. I think BJP is trying to create a new narrative for next 2 years, the narrative that will run of course, in the short run for the state elections, and in the long run for the parliamentary election. Probably the new narrative that will run will be a kind of Mahilaon ki Sarkar or etc. etc. The other thing that maybe I think I will go with positive feeling of Sanjay, that maybe this government is also conceptualizing a more kind of decentralization of power. I don't see many reasons to believe this, but maybe that they have realized that centralization of power has not worked very well. So they really need more faces, more active people, more star performers to really attract attention.
Which is why perhaps we're looking at such a large expansion in this manner. Professor Thakur, there's this one very important point that you raised here that I would like Vinay to step in here on this, please. Vinay, the fact that you have a central government just 1.5 years down the line, this is not general elections time. Of course, it's going to be state election times for a lot of big important states here. But for a central government to be looking at revamping or rebuilding a new narrative at this point.
Look, Sahir, let's make no mistake. And I think, we tend to sometimes forget what's very obvious about the BJP. BJP as a party is permanently in election mode. They always remain in election mode. And if they weren't like that, you would not see some of the inductions that have been done today, for instance, in a state like West Bengal. You see a very key member and an influential leader of the Matwa community, which has been included in this cabinet today. That's a 5-year forward plan. It's not even something that's going to happen right away. They've just lost the election in the state and they've begun planning for the next round. That's how the BJP operates. They are always in an election mode. They always think elections and they always think about winning. See Maharashtra, for instance, right? You see the induction of Kapil Patil, for instance. Kapil Patil comes from the Thane region of Maharashtra. It's a region where the Shiv Sena is dominant. The BJP does in fact, he's the only member of parliament from the entire Thane region. Belongs to the OBC community. He's been brought in. Narayan Rane again has been brought into the cabinet, not because he's some skillfully wonderful, professional background minister, but simply because in the Konkan region, Shiv Sena is very strong and the BJP is trying very hard to break that region for itself. So here is a party that always remains in election mode and every decision that they take, by and large, is linked to that. Now, that's where the only part of the script, which is not, which seemingly doesn't add up to what we believe, is political, is say the exit of certain ministers like Ravi Shankar Prasad or something like Prakash Javadekar. I have only one small difference of opinion with Sanjay. If the elevations were about performance, then let's look at those 4 or 5 elevations. Mr. Kiren Rijiju was the Minister of State for Youth Affairs and Sports. I don't know what performance parameter was used to elevate him to the cabinet. It was purely a political decision. Similarly, Anurag Thakur is currently the junior minister in the Ministry of Finance. The Finance Ministry has been under attack for a lot of other things, and everybody knows the PMO is playing a very active part in the economic policy of the country. You also have, other ministers, junior ministers, whose performance may not be the only reason. I seriously believe that some of the actions that have been done are based on perception management. They know that the baggage of what has happened in the last year and a half with the pandemic needs to be removed. And one way of doing that is to ensure that you have new faces. And whether it is all about governance or not, whether it's about changing a policy or not, can only be assessed once the portfolios are announced. Because you never know. One minister who had a personality of one particular type may be replaced by another who had a similar personality. So once we know the portfolios, we'll probably know whether the government intends really the performance of governance or it was really a political exercise.
Right. Nilanjan, would you like to add to that issue of governance or performance related, or the resignations, at least from these 4 big ministries that we've seen, has been also more about public statements that the ministers have made and the public handling of a lot of very touchy issues?
I think, Vinay, touched upon a very important thing, that the most important thing that we have to really wait for is the announcement of how the portfolios are reallocated. I'd like to see that who gets law, who becomes the new INB minister, who becomes the new education minister or the health minister. In health, you also had the Minister of Health resigning, among the people who have been, resigned from the Council of Ministers. But there are a couple of things, which actually defy logic, whichever way you want to really try to explain things, which makes it mean, that, what Vinay is saying, that this is essentially a political exercise. Take one very small name, Dr. Virendra Kumar, he has been a long-term MP from Madhya Pradesh. I think, that, this is the list which I have, I missed out on the first 3 or 4 names, as they were taking oath, but I have no reason to believe that he has not taken oath. So Dr. Virendra Kumar was a minister in the first tenure of Mr. Modi, and he continued to be a minister of state handling women and child development and minority affairs. But after the 2019 election, he was a very senior minister. He was the pro tem speaker for the new, giving ushering in oath to the new MPs who were elected in 2019. He did not find space in the union cabinet, in the Council of Ministers. But he's been brought in now. So I really can't understand that. Why was he dropped in 2019? Was it for reasons of performance? Or was it because you are taking him now because you require a big prominent Dalit face? So this entire thing that looking for caste-specific representatives to represent in your Council of Ministers is something, which makes me believe this is essentially a political exercise and not so much looking at governance. I really do not see, you have to look at Mr. Modi in his totality, the entire 20 years of governance, he's been, Mr. Modi in October this year will complete 20 years as Chief Minister or the Prime Minister, from October 2001. So it's going to be a very important watershed in his, political career. Now, in 20 years, he's had a certain signature style. I don't see that signature being altered. He would continue to work with a very core team of highly trusted people, surrounded by people who are, each one is individually appointed by him. And I don't see any dramatic change in it.
All right. It's an important point here that you've raised here, which only adds to the further understanding of the crux of this expansion of what we're seeing. We appreciate all our panelists, all experts being with us through 2 hours of this evening while we've been discussing, scrutinizing names here. We're slipping into a very tiny breather. Back in just a bit.